Yeah, I've got one article,
Nice.
but you can start with yours. Hey everyone, welcome to the Field Between. My name is Ahmed.
I'm Yasmine.
All right, what are we getting into today?
We're back. It's been
Yeah.
a bit.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did the Corey episode.
Yeah, there was a fun episode with Corey.
Yeah.
But I've been gone for a while, so I'm glad to be back.
You were on a bike ride.
Yeah.
And then on a lecture circuit. What was that like?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like pretty missing in action for like 2 weeks. I went on a bike ride with my dad. We went on my childhood tandem bike, but we kind of, kitted it up for this trip.
Right.
And we went all the way from Pittsburgh to DC. It was really fun. We did the Gap Trail, which is a great Allegheny passageway. It's a really well-paved, like beautiful trail. And then in Cumberland, Maryland, you switch over to the C&O Trail, which is much more of like a kind of footpath, not as well maintained. Really beautiful still, but like a much rougher ride.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. I've never done anything like that. We biked for like 4 to 5 hours a day. We did like between 40 to 60 miles, depending on the day. And it just kind of shows you how much your body can do. Like I was really physically tired. I'm not like active in that way at all in my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt nice. It felt nice to have my head more empty. And just like focus on the scenery and the, kind of changing leaves and stuff.
Yeah.
My dad and I did pretty well. There was like a little standoff in a coffee shop at the end where I was like, I'm 32 years old.
Yeah. I'm an adult.
Yeah. But honestly, like for two.
Now, did he buy your food on that?
The entire trip. Yeah.
That's even more embarrassing. I'm an adult. I want pancakes.
I want this sandwich. I didn't even think about that. You're right. Yeah, no, he's such a sweetie. He like definitely treats us as financially independent, except for food. That's his big exception. He like has to provide food.
Yeah.
No, but it was really nice. I mean, I obviously haven't spent that much time with my dad since I was like a kid, one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So it was really special and probably not something we'll necessarily have again, just the two of us. So I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of kind of bonding time, a lot of thinking about stuff we want to do in the future and travel and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Went through a lot of really depressed towns in Maryland and also in West Virginia, which was, not surprising, but still sad.
Yeah.
We had one really sad experience. So the trail is like pretty flat most of the time, thankfully. It's at a slight incline the first half of the way and then a slight decline the rest of the way. Yeah. But the incline is like less than 2%. Like it's pretty gradual.
Wow, look at you talking about percentages of grades of different inclines. And you're like, oh, this is a 2% grade.
Well, we just kept on looking it up because like it does make a difference. We had so much weight on us that we were like tired,
Yeah.
My dad didn't notice it. He had all these theories. He was like looking at the river. He was like, we're not going uphill. Look at the river. And I was like, we're going uphill. Like I'm considerably more tired today than I was yesterday.
What is the river?
I don't know. He had all these theories.
He was like
quickly it's fancying himself a navigator. He was like, look at the direction it's flowing in. But those theories ended up being not accurate. So
yeah.
Okay. But I was going to say where it gets really tricky is at the end of the night when you like go to like your Airbnb or when you get off the trail for food. That's kind of when you get fucked with like more hills.
Uh-huh.
So those were always like when our like chain would fall off and stuff like that. That was like the roughest. And on our second to last day, we like went up a really major hill. We actually got off our bike and like walked because we were just like, we can't do this. Like our chain kept on falling off. It was really frustrating. And it was the kind of thing where we're like, should we go back? We should have picked a different town, but it's hard to research like which towns, are right off the trail versus like if you were in a car, obviously not that far.
Yeah.
And then we ended up at this like diner that had like a weird vibe. And that was the one meal I paid for because I just wanted to since he had been picking up everything. And I got like a lobster mac and cheese. It was like a more pricey item. And I was like, let me just pay for this. But we both felt like it was a weird vibe. Then we left and we saw that there was a Confederate flag on the restaurant.
Yeah. And you turned around and saluted it.
We did not do that.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what you said.
No, but I was just so bummed that we paid for that meal. I would obviously never have gone into a restaurant that I saw had a Confederate flag. So we were pretty sad. Between that and the hill, that was like our worst stop for sure.
You should have asked if they were going to vote for Jill Stein.
I don't think so.
They might. You never know.
I don't think so. I don't think that's her main constituency, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was cool though. The nature was beautiful. We met other people on the trail, including a lot of retirees on e-bikes, which was really inspiring and fun to see.
Yeah.
And then when I was in DC, I got a chance to catch up with like my mom's close family friend, who basically are like cousins that I grew up with. So that was nice spending time with them. Mm-hmm. Saw some other friends, met a friend's baby that I hadn't met yet. And then I did a lecture at Cornell on Monday and a lecture at McAllister and a workshop at McAllister on Thursday. No, Thursday and Friday. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but
yeah,
I came back to Ahmed kind of a mess, poor guy, but he is putting me back together. The lectures were good. The first one, only 5 people came out. But honestly, I was so exhausted that it was kind of nice to like have it be more workshop style.
Yeah.
And at least those people were really interested and asked good questions. And sometimes that's more valuable, honestly, than a larger audience. Like it's the same CV line either way, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, this like couple who are both professors were like really, really thoughtful, had some really lovely questions that actually like helped me think more critically about the work.
Nice.
And then I gave the same exact lecture, just a shortened version of it on Thursday. So that was kind of nice to already have had that first run and be less nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And stayed with a good friend who had invited me. So that was nice to catch up with her too. Met another friend's baby. I've also been on like a baby tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's my little update. You have a major life update.
Yep. Yeah. I quit my dang job.
Ahmed Amr, who has talked for years, finally quit his job.
Yeah.
What led you to this point? Walk us through it.
So it's just like a mixture of things. It's the job has its own sort of dysfunctions. But the role that I was in was just becoming really high stress, for a number of reasons, for several reasons. I hate when people say a number. And then I hate when I do it. When you're like,
is it kind of like the ways in which it just has become like a slightly fancier thing that people use when they don't have to?
Well, like, what's the fucking number? Like, you can say it. It's like a number. But if you just mean many, you can just say many or several. You know.
I never thought of that, but I guess you're right.
Anyway, for several reasons, just became stressful. Where from like 8 till noon is just meetings back to back, and the only thing that you really have time to do between those meetings is just like scroll on your phone and see like horrible news. And then it just got to the point where I wasn't doing what I need to be doing to be able to manage just worsening chronic pain symptoms. And yeah, so just to be in pain all day and then just seeing terrible stuff and the mixture of that, it just like makes depression a lot worse. And I was skipping meals, not really able to make it to the gym as much as I'd like to. And if I did, I just was feeling like I was lacking the patience to really focus in on physical therapy type of exercises.
Which is super important for you for like pain management and maintenance. Yeah.
And so there's the pain management aspect where it's like, there are the things that I know about, that I know how to manage and focus on. And then there's something causing like pain and weakness just in the low back that's been going on for like well over a year now. And I don't know what's going on there. And every time I go get it looked at or tell doctors about it, they're just like, yeah, whatever, normal. And so it's something that, to understand, I think I need to be able to take time to see like a pain specialist and my like primary, but also continue doing some tests. And
you kind of have to assemble like a team, I think. Yeah.
I have a theory. I mean, I know a lot of patients do, but I'm like, there is something out there that like every time I'm reading studies or, just trying to understand like the symptoms that I feel are connected, but then every specialist is like, no, these have nothing to do with one another. I'm like, there is like a very clear diagnosis that keeps coming up in a lot of my, what I'm looking into. And so that's something that I want to chase down and at the very least, like be able to say that we eliminated it. So yeah,
I feel like our healthcare system is not very holistic, which is really frustrating. Like even when you get good specialists, they're not always talking to each other. It takes so much time and effort to like make that happen.
Yeah, you can't wave your mic around while you're talking into it. Yeah, no, it is kind of like a full-time job in and of itself to just track all that shit down.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point that I was not feeling human. I
Oh, you're gonna
was
make me
thinking,
really sad.
well, I was thinking about this because I gave my 2 weeks resignation on Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like what had been happening up to that point is like I was really just like not liking who I was because I felt like less
Present.
patient. I felt like my nerves were just like always like raw. You know what I'm saying? Like just kind of a bit more irritable. Like I would try to go out, in the time that I had to go for a walk or something like that, and I'd kind of feel nothing. Like and I would remember I was just like, oh, I used to walk around just, this is in North Carolina, wherever, right? Just go for a walk and like you might not even see anything that is to most people like remarkable, but you're just like, oh my God, like I feel so, like your general posture toward other people, or that you see like that if you, whether or not you look at them or make eye contact or talk to them or whatever, like the general posture is just like, oh, like I like love this person, or like there's like, you just like feel somewhat connected to
I think we talked about this when
everything.
we were going through our Sufi poetry phase a little bit, like just kind of seeing like the beauty and divine in like nature and in other people. Yeah. And there's a way that like I think a lot of the way our society is structured kind of takes us away from that. You have to be very intentional, and sometimes you just can't if you are too burdened with other things. Yeah,
exactly. And it just had been such a prolonged period of like absolutely just feeling nothing toward anything, right? Buildings, trees. Like it sounds so stupid, but like other people, strangers. And then I gave my 2 weeks resignation on Thursday, and I just went to go walk to the gym at like lunchtime. And it's scary, but like I also immediately felt like a change. I was just like, oh, like I feel a little bit more free. Like it's something kind of lifted, you know what I'm saying? And I started to feel that way again. And it's kind of like almost like kind of almost brought me to tears. Like while I was walking to the gym, I was just like,
tell me this, love. That's so sweet.
And I was like, to me, that kind of made it seem like, oh, this is on one hand, it feels like the right decision, but at the same time, it does feel, like the reality of the situation is going to set in, and like, going to stress in a different way about not having a job, and it's like, oh, did I ruin our futures, and did blah, blah, blah. I think the situation is that we're very fortunate. It's not like we have like a ton in savings or anything, but
the fact that we have savings, like if I didn't have a job and we didn't have savings, we wouldn't have made this decision. We definitely thought about that,
Yeah. And, we can float to varying degrees of comfort for like a little while, but we're obviously like on a very reduced budget.
Right. Which in some ways might be good for us, honestly. My theories on this. I feel like I think also what you're describing in such a beautiful way is like a really cool thing to try and hold on to and like use as like a touchstone. Yeah. Like, because of course, there will be small sacrifices, like can't eat out as much or whatever. But like the sense of feeling ultimately connected to like the world is like in the long term far greater,
Yeah. No, that it felt immediately a lot better in that sense. And,
I feel like it's such a good indication.
Yeah.
Because you're not one who would have taken that decision lightly. And so like you obviously are still aware of like you took it very seriously, and the fact that you still felt relieved,
Yeah. And and the reason for that is it's funny because we both approach this very differently, right? Like I think you've been pushing for me to leave for a long time, right? Yeah. I think pretty much since you knew me.
I think so too.
And when you were making $17,000 a year, you're like, I got us. you're like, babe, just quit. I'm a grad student.
We can live together in my room, in my shared house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that feels cool though. Like, we've only been together for 4 years, but like, I mean, you really obviously started financially supporting me almost immediately as we were together. Mm-hmm. And so it felt nice to finally be like, oh, like I actually could support us this time around. Because you're right, when I was a grad student, that was less of a real offer. I think at the time I thought it was, which was delusional.
Yeah. You're like, wow, the power of love will carry us.
We'll stretch these $17,000 across North Carolina. No, but now I have like an actual salary.
Yeah.
I mean, we are going. I think you said that we're now down to a third of our income. Not quite that much.
We're losing 2/3 of
We're losing 2/3 of our income.
Pretty much, yeah.
But like, alhamdulillah, that shows that we were doing pretty well, you know? So.
Yeah. And so what you make as a professor, I mean, like, obviously, like, it isn't like my family we grew up on a lot less for like a family of 5.
I feel like it's okay to say numbers. I don't know if that's like gauche, but just like for transparency, I make 80,000, and I feel like that's like perfectly reasonable for 2 people to live off of. Obviously, I mean, their whole families.
I mean, it's still. I think the median income for a family in the U.S. is like 50, 40, 60 something. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think what was I gonna say?
Oh yeah, I kind of interrupted your trajectory. You were saying like that I thought about it differently than you, but that you.
Yeah. It's not just like it being like, oh my God, how are we gonna make it, right? Like I do think just numbers wise we'll be okay, right? But a lot of it was the fact that, you know, again, like my family grew up on a lot less, and when you're a kid in that and you're going through college and you're just like, oh my God, like upward mobility is just in the country. I mean, the odds are like not, they're very slim, right? And so it's just part of it is like, oh, you achieved this thing. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it was a much bigger part of my identity than I care to admit, right?
That's fair though. I mean, you grew up in like you grew up like under sort of rough financial circumstances, and like to be able to have that security was an accomplishment. You worked really hard for that.
Yeah, I suppose, right? But I don't know how hard I worked. I think it's just like a series of getting lucky and
I don't
whatever.
think that's true.
But anyway, I do think the irony of just being like, oh, you finally achieved that upward mobility, and then you kind of quit because you're like, oh, I'm stressed and, you know, it's kind of hard and whatever. And it's just like, my parents couldn't have even dreamed of like that level of stress, right? Like they're like, yeah, we'd take that any day, right? Like that deal.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm still trying to work through that. But anyway, it was, and
I will say your parents were super supportive of you, which I thought was so sweet. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. They were like, your health comes first. And that was like really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised actually in that shift because like, I mean, and maybe this is mostly on me, but like the mindset was just like, oh, if you fuck up like even the slightest bit, that's the end of it, right? Like there's no safety net.
Right.
There's no safety net in this country, right?
There isn't, but we're like really lucky. I think we've talked about this before probably on the podcast, but I think this shows like the difference in the way that we grew up. And it's interesting how that continues to like affect your mindset later on, where like I grew up with a financial security, like a huge amount of financial security, and you didn't. So I feel like mentally you kind of still assume that you don't have that. But like the reality is like there are a lot of people that would catch us before we were like out on the street. Like we would live with my parents, like, you know.
Yeah.
But I think for you that feels like that's more of a real possibility than it does for me.
Yeah.
And like it's fucked up that we have that privilege and others don't. Like a lot of people are very close to that, but I do feel like we are lucky to have a large network of people that would support us if we needed it. Even just like immediate family, you know.
Right.
Which again is not happening anytime soon either. But like if things got that bad, you know. Yeah.
But I guess in the next couple of weeks, I told myself I would kind of give it like a month or so before I started the job search, but I haven't even finished my 2 weeks and I'm kind of already trying to figure out what the next thing is going to be. But I think ideal scenario is get something that starts like in January or, you know, early in the new year, and then be able to take these 2 months to just really focus on healthcare stuff. And
then also you got some projects you want to work on.
We got some projects. We're launching the cafe.
Finally, it's going to be
so
November 2nd is the first day. We're so excited.
Yeah. And then I want to focus more on putting this together, the podcast, into like a nice little package and making sure that we do a better job planning. Because I feel like we're better than a lot of the other podcasts out there that people start. We can up those numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then also you had some cool ideas about maybe doing like a spin-off series with Corey or other friends. So like it might even kind of branch out and have like more elements, which would be cool.
Yeah, people responded positively to the Corey episode.
They did. I was a little jealous for a hot second, but then I was happy. I thought that was cute.
Yeah. So.
And then also maybe working on a screenplay, right?
Some writing, yeah.
Yeah, some writing generally.
So that would be good too.
I think that the tricky thing that you'll have to balance, I think, is that I understand why you're already applying for jobs, and I think that's totally reasonable. But I feel like, I don't know if you need to make a schedule or something once you're like properly unemployed on November 7th to make sure that you also are working on those other projects. Because what I would hate to happen to you is for you to then like spend 2 months applying for jobs and not have worked on the things you wanted to work on. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's like you wake up every morning and you apply to jobs for an hour and then you like do writing or whatever, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be that scheduled, but I think maybe scheduling the job application component, because if we go through 2 months and you didn't get a chance to like reach out to healthcare providers, that would be a shame, for that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also understand like the impulse it's also a rough market in tech. So I get it.
Yeah. Bad time to leave a secure job, but that's.
I got you. We're good.
Yeah.
We'll be all right. Maybe the cafe, just sell lots of chai.
Yeah. I was trying to, I told you I was doing calculations about how much chai I would have to sell to make up for my salary. It's probably more chai than I can realistically sell in Pittsburgh. But
I mean, if you started like, it's something to think about. Like if you started going to like Juma or like moving around a little bit the city, potentially. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more than you can sell just out of our apartment right now.
For sure.
Yeah. But that could be cute. Actually, Ahmed had a Caravanserai event right before I left for traveling. So about 2.5 weeks now, I guess. And it was really lovely. It was the first like outdoor event, and it was focused on environmental disaster and capitalism. Yeah. It was crazy timing because he planned it before all the stuff happened in Western North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But like he packed up like a little wheelbarrow essentially of like equipment and was like carrying it.
It was a cart.
It's like a cart.
A wagon.
Yeah, it's a wagon.
Wheelbarrow.
But it kind of had that look to it.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this really good book. It's actually right next to me right now called Muslims of the Heartland: How Syrian Immigrants Made a Home in the American Midwest. And it's about Arab peddlers in like the interwar period in the 1900s. And it was just so funny looking at Ahmed. I was like, this is such a visual throwback to what I'm reading about. And it would be so cute if you like wandered around.
What were they doing?
They were selling wares, like going door to door.
Yeah.
Selling like, in their cases, often like scarves or like things that were associated with like the exotic.
Yeah.
But I was like, that could be you with chai,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are all our updates. I'm trying to think any others. Those are definitely some big ones. Very proud of you. I feel like I didn't think you were going to do it, to be honest. And I'm proud of you for actually doing it.
Yeah. You'd walk by my desk and you'd be like, pussy, you're not going to do it. And that's kind of what ultimately.
Wow. That like inspirational language. That harassment really, no.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's up to you. I can't do it for you, but it seems like the right call. So I was happy that you went through with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now your job is to help me structure my workdoor because I need help being accountable to not doing too many things.
Yeah. How much does like a professor's assistant job pay?
I don't know.
Really?
Lots of love. That's what you'll get paid in.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Cafe. Oh, the cat's been doing this thing where she just kind of because we switched where we sleep in the apartment.
It's been really helpful.
Yeah. So we got rid of the noise from the alleyway is no longer a factor. But now the cat it's so weird how consistently timed it is. But like at around 6 a.m, maybe 5:30 or 6 a.m, she'll just like dig in her litter box very loudly. And where we are is closer to where her litter box is. So she'll just dig around in there and then zoom out of it and just like yell, like just wail.
Yeah.
Like, wow, wow. Like just.
I think part of it is she can't access our bed anymore because we're like up on a platform.
Yeah.
And she misses us. Did she do it last night? I might be just sleeping through it now.
So I've been trying to adjust little things about her litter box to see if I can
Get
make
her
her
to
stop doing that.
We could maybe move the
I
whole thing
did.
more to the kitchen.
Well, no, I took off so we have this like cage that looks aesthetic, and inside of it is her litter box.
It was my
and
vision.
And the litter box itself is kind of it's like a metal pan. It's a deep metal pan, and then it has this like plastic attachment that makes the walls go higher up. And what she would do, I don't know if you noticed, but like when she would first she just like keeps pawing at that plastic thing for some reason.
I didn't realize that.
And so I just removed it.
Okay. That help with the noise a little bit?
Well, at least she doesn't hit it anymore. And that was like when I would wake up is when she started doing that.
You're a lot more sensitive to noise than I am, I've realized, in terms of sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she still kind of howls. The howling thing, I think we just need to stop responding to her.
We haven't been at night.
Yeah.
We've been just sleeping through it.
Yeah.
I have. She doesn't do it for long, to be fair.
Yeah.
She does it for like 5 minutes and then I fall back asleep.
But it's so annoying because it's like just in that time between, there's not enough time to fall back asleep.
Now there will be.
For me, yeah. Not for you.
But it doesn't wake me up anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
I like surface for a second, I just fall right back asleep. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother. It's become so routine that now I'm used to it.
I think if we hang up some floating shelves so that she can get up there.
I'm just worried. We should try, but I am worried that she's too old. I'm kind of worried she's going to fall.
She falls and dies and she falls and dies.
Ahmed, that would be so sad.
Yeah, people do that all the time.
She's a cat.
I know.
I want to set her up for her
It's
death.
you know.
I'll research it. Maybe we can find.
She won't fall if we carpet them,
Okay.
because then she'll have something to hold on to. She'd be fine.
All right. Yeah. No, we should do that because I would like. I don't.
Also, like a cat wouldn't fall and die from there.
I don't think so. Right.
No, she'd
Yeah.
break a little leg.
Oh. I do like sleeping with her. I don't have a problem with it. I just if we can get her up there, maybe she'll be chiller.
Yeah.
We also have to play with her more during the day. That helps, I think, running her around more.
I want to get her like a toy or something.
Yeah.
Like that little, because I do think she's bored.
That one that our neighbor used to use was really
Yeah,
simple. We
just
should
like
just get something cheap like that.
Actually, I think we do.
Have it.
No, but we have wire. We can just
Great.
put something on the end of it and then.
I feel like both me and Ahmed are like so aware of our upcoming budget change that like every little thing we're like,
Yeah.
but will that be expensive?
Yeah.
Even if it's like only gonna be like $3.
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah. I kind of go through extremes where I'm just like,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. So those are all our updates. Should we get into some or any other updates before we get into some news items?
Nope.
Exciting stuff.
What do you got? Do you want to start or should I start?
I can start us off.
Okay.
So mine are more like US based. The first is a Harvard Crimson article.
Oh.
Faculty members suspended from Harvard's main library after study in protest. So I think this is truly absurd.
Uh-huh.
This couldn't have been a more kind of milquetoast, not threatening, not disruptive protest in Widener Library, which is like the main library at Harvard, where I used to spend a lot of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they were just like faculty and students who had like signs on their laptops.
Yeah.
Some of them were about, Gaza and genocide, but some were more about free speech, like embrace diverse perspectives, like allow for freedom of speech. Like, again, really. And they were
just paper signs that
Yep.
were taped to the back of their laptops.
yeah, and they were reading and doing work. Like,
and wearing kufiyas.
some of them were wearing kofiyas, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were just like studying, though. They were not disruptive in any way to the space, like in
Right.
terms
It was
of
a silent,
noise.
yeah.
It was totally silent. And the professors specifically were reading materials on free speech and dissent.
Mm-hmm.
And these guards came in and noted down their names and ID numbers, and then they were like sanctioned by the university for like policies that are about misconduct and harassment. The
Yeah.
professors were suspended from the library, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know, it feels almost like a parody of itself. Like I have seen the free speech on campus sort of eroding, especially with this issue. But I found this still kind of incredible, like a new low, a new level of low. The fact that it was so, like, it would be one thing if like people came and ran through and were like screaming in the library, but the fact that a silent protest was sanctioned, it's just insane to me. Yeah.
It's almost as great of a miscarriage of justice as what happened in Colombia with brave Professor Shai David.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So.
Right. But that shows you these extremes. Like
Isn't that crazy?
That guy was like actively harassing students.
Not just actively harassing students, but like would have these rallies where non-students mostly would gather on Columbia's campus and at the time when there was the encampment and they kind of had to shut different gates to the campus down a little bit. I don't know if you remember seeing that video of him with his like group of like of protesters, but they weren't allowed to go to the encampment because obviously it would have been a terrible idea. But one of the university executives, I can't remember if it was like the COO or the CFO of the university, but he was there to say like, hey, you can't bring all these people on campus and then to these students who are protesting. Like we're not going to be able to handle that situation. And he like threw his tantrum, whatever, directly in the face of this university executive and was just like, fuck you, you coward, like yelling at him. And he didn't even get suspended or anything then.
No.
Like nothing happened.
It took a full like year for them to actually suspend him. And
Yeah.
and exactly, that shows kind of the contrast here, where it's just one group of people. I mean, obviously these are different universities, but still, like at one university, you have people silently protesting who are getting sanctioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy who like filmed students, publicly doxed students, brought people like, talk about outside agitators, brought people to campus, like who were not students to like intimidate students. Took a full year to suspend him, which is crazy.
And just use the most vile, like anti-Arab, like Islamophobic, like shit, like just was endangering the students.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very, very sad.
And even after he was suspended, like he's just suspended now. Who knows what his fate's going to be? Like the university still doesn't have they're like, they won't even straight up fire him. And he's not even tenured. That's the thing.
But he's he's tenure track though. He's assistant professor.
Sure, but he's not tenured.
No,
right? Like, and for that to happen, and then for him to, after he got suspended, he made another video directed at a campus or a university executive where he was just like, fuck you. Like literally just like, fuck you. I'll see you in court.
Cass, this message is for you. I'm not going anywhere. And you can go fuck yourself until we meet at court.
Fuck you. Like you whatever. And of course he's just like playing this all as like anti-Semitism, as if he hasn't just been harassing not only the students but other faculty and admin for a year now.
Things that would get anyone else fired, yeah.
And in the meantime, I forget what university this is, but there was actually a case now where all these guys, like all these people who have been trying to change the way colleges work over the last year because they just want to use this vague threat of anti-Semitism to further privatize and like corporatize education in the US, because that's really been their goal, because they see that they can make money off of it. There was actually an instance of a tenure professor being fired.
Where?
I don't remember. Let me look it up.
Yeah.
But it happened. Like it happened somewhere, which is kind of scary because it's like, what does tenure mean anymore then?
Right.
And it was for nothing. Like they didn't do anything extreme at all. Let me look it up.
Yeah.
So, okay, here on the Intercept, it was Professor Mara Finkelstein, who is Jewish, was terminated by Muhlenberg College for an Instagram repost.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Where's the college?
Allentown, Pennsylvania, actually.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I did not hear about this at all.
Yeah. Professor of anthropology at Muhlenberg.
Man, the irony of like how much anti-Zionist Jews have been targeted is just crazy.
Yeah. Maybe we should reach out to her.
Hey. Yeah.
Anyway, but it's nuts. Like,
yeah. Well, I've got another news item for you.
Okay.
This about the Muslims being disappointing.
Oh man, is this
yeah.
I've got one of those too, actually.
Oh, really?
A couple.
So there's a small city, I think it's like a couple thousand people, called, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but Hamtramck or something in Michigan.
What? Hamtramck?
Yeah, it's spelled
Is it PK?
Hamtramck.
Hamtramck?
I don't know, it sounds like ham, which is kind of ironic, because it is a Muslim majority.
Oh man, they should petition to change the name. That would be such a funny, like that would just drive.
We are beef trim.
Yeah, halal track.
Halal trim, yeah. So it's a very small Muslim city, but it's near Detroit and Dearborn, so bigger Muslim cities. I mean, Detroit is not exclusively a Muslim city, but cities with large Muslim populations. And this part of Michigan has had Muslims in large numbers for a very long time historically. A lot of Muslim immigrants came there to work on the Ford assembly line in like the 1900s, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this guy, Mr. Ghalib, who is an immigrant from Yemen, became the first Arab American to be mayor in the whole country. So he was elected mayor of Hamtramck in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And he endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Nice.
In a very well-publicized media thing. Let me find a photo for you. It's like a bunch of Arab uncles in thobes and Trump. It is really depressing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, part of the articulation was like a kind of like anger with Harris, for the Biden-Harris administration's handling of Gaza. But part of it was also like anti-LGBTQ stuff, which is really sad. Yeah.
So I actually watched the video. I was gonna. This is where we have overlap in the items here, but I didn't know that's who it was. I didn't know he was like the mayor or whatever of this like little town. But yeah, when he got up, I just watched the video. An absolute dog.
Yeah.
Dog, because he gestured toward, he's like, Donald Trump is going to bring peace.
First of all, bullshit. Yeah.
He's like, he's going to end the war in the Middle East. Does not mention Palestine. Doesn't mention Palestine. Just vaguely gestures to ending war in the Middle East, which, like obviously on one hand, again, no mention of Gaza or like, or of Palestinians at all. But it just kind of further promotes this idea among American conservatives that there's just always war in the Middle East and that the U.S. always just kind of needs to be involved to keep these like animals in line.
As opposed to Israel has specifically attacked Syria, now Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza.
So, Kelb, an absolute just like a piece of shit. And yes, and then he's like, not only that, but Trump is going to protect our kids from like curriculum.
I think it's stupid dog whistling,
actually, which harkens back to that letter that was written back last year. Which again, I think it's worth mentioning. Omar Suleiman signed, and like all these like imams.
We have an episode on that we'll link in the show notes.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's like the anti-LGBTQ element of it, when I'm sorry, but like this. Over the last year, the Arab, Muslim, Palestinian community just has not had a better ally than like the queer community.
Not to mention that there are many queer Muslims and queer Arabs, but yes, I mean like even like folks who have no like ethnic or religious connection, but who are really actively organized in queer organizing circles, like have just been on the front lines of Palestinian organizing in a way that is like absolutely just so impressive and lovely.
And so it's unforgivable when like these guys like get up and like are just like standing next to fucking Donald Trump and being like, first of all, the issue that they ostensibly are hanging this election on is, they're like, oh, we support Donald Trump because he's going to support Arabs. And it's like, you don't even mention that. And then you take the time to then like shit on your like, the people who have been like the biggest allies over the last year. It's disgusting. And I would say like this guy doesn't even care about Palestine or Palestinians. Like in his heart, like he's just like, he's always been looking for an opportunity to be a piece of shit and to like cozy up to conservatives and like is a fascist in his own way. And fuck him.
Asad Danya, who I follow on Twitter and whose commentary I also really often enjoy, I think had a good take on this, that like I think there are some Arab Americans, not many, but some who are kind of like, well, both parties don't care about us, might as well have tax breaks kind of thing. Like don't care about like anyone else's like safety or like, like we're only kind of switching party lines because they thought it might benefit them. And now that it's clear, to be fair, that it's not, and it's not, obviously the Democrats don't give a shit about Arab lives. They kind of are like, whatever, might as well get a tax break kind of thing. I think also it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk about
he's not even gonna get a fucking tax
probably
break.
not.
He's the mayor of a fucking small ass town. He makes what, $17,000 a year.
He might have another job. I don't really know this man, but
like the tax, unless he's a billionaire or like a multi-millionaire, he's not gonna get a fucking tax
also,
break.
Such an American idea to like be like, I'm almost wealthy, when actually you have a lot more likelihood of being evicted than you do of ever being like Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
Like, get fucking real. Like you're just like a little lapdog. Like you hope they'll notice you and like maybe give you a little pat on the head.
I do think it also speaks in an interesting way to the diversity of like both like Arab American demographics and Muslim American demographics, and the places where they overlap and are distinct. Like polling shows from like CARE, for example, which is kind of like the Muslim ACLU, that like a slight majority of Muslim Americans are supporting Jill Stein. Then it looks like maybe Trump and then Harris. Those are pretty neck and neck.
It's overwhelmingly Jill Stein.
But it's overwhelmingly Jill Stein.
And then like 18% Trump and then something.
Yeah. But included in that are like, you know, Arab Americans, even within that, like the kind of like way that you might think about someone's experience right now who is Palestinian American versus Yemeni American is very different. Yeah. And then Arab Americans also include a lot of Christian Arabs, not just Muslims.
Yep.
And then in the Muslim vote, you also have so many different demographics. Like the same person I was mentioning, Asad, was pointing out that like even within the microcosm of like New York City electoral politics, like Bangladeshi Americans are significantly more progressive and have been for years than their Pakistani and Indian counterparts. So it really does break down on a lot of different lines. And I'm glad we're starting to hear more nuance in that reporting, because similar to like the kind of like Latino vote, like it's not just one demographic, it's quite a few demographics that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But one thing they are pretty united on is disgust for the current situation in Palestine, as they should be. But that's maybe the only thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mayor of like, or like high-ranking like Muslim officials in Michigan, other officials have been like, this man does not speak for us. Like we're disgusted by this. So I think he's also not like representing even everyone in Michigan, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy that anyone who is actually going for Trump like actually cares about Palestinians. Like you may the same way that I don't believe Democrats care about Palestinians. Like we can't say like they may say that this is the thing that's making them do that, but like they just wanted an excuse, and they're just using Palestine as an excuse to launder all their other bullshit beliefs.
I mean, I think I agree with the analysis that a lot of like Muslims who are voting for Trump probably are just like, well, neither of these parties are, they're the same with foreign policy, which they are. So like, let me go for the one that like maybe kind of like aligns with my beliefs about economy or my social beliefs, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we can get into this, or should we do like one more news item? I feel like with like the kind of voting for Harris thing, I truly don't think it'll make a difference for Palestine. And I find it very offensive, honestly, when people are like, well, it's going to be much worse under Harris. Cause I'm like, under Trump. Yeah. I think that they don't realize how bad things are in Palestine right now. Like that's what that tells me.
Yeah.
I do personally believe that like my own life and that the lives of people who are vulnerable in this country might be marginally worse under Harris. And so like, you know,
under Trump.
My bad. Under Trump. Thank you. Wow. They really have become the same in my mind. Under Trump. So, I mean, it's like, oh, do you pick the slight lesser of two evils, or do you try and kind of throw your vote behind what could become maybe one day like an actual viable, not two-party system? You know, I don't really know. That's kind of where my thoughts are currently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do have sympathy for people who are like, I hate Harris, and I'm worried that like the breakdown of American society will be dangerous for me and my loved ones.
Yeah.
But I truly, you cannot convince me that it makes a difference for foreign policy. I think they will be literally exactly the same, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me is that a lot of the argument for voting for Harris that people make is, oh, we are in an exceptional moment of crisis, and therefore like you have to choose the lesser of two evils. And it kind of just prefigures that this system that we're in wasn't designed or isn't currently designed to just keep escalating the level of crisis in the country, right?
Yeah.
So their argument is just like, oh, well, we know you just have to be an adult this time and like vote like against your conscience because if you don't, then you won't get to ever again, right? Like it's gonna get only worse. But if you do vote for her, then things will get better, and next time you'll be able to vote according to your morals. How long has that been the argument, right? And if we're to start looking at this critically, like we just have to I just think this, it's much more likely that they're just going to keep ramping up the crises, right? Like we're not going to actually change anything. And 4 years from now, 8 years from now, it's going to be like, oh my God, yeah, democracy is on the line again.
Yeah.
And if you don't continue doing this, like it's designed to do that.
I agree. And I also think that it's likely that we will see a deterioration of like fundamental institutions under Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess it's just kind of like a pace accelerator. I think that's already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, one thing I appreciate about your take, though I change every day. I'm like the ultimate annoying, someone should poll me, undecided voter right now between Stein and Harris.
Mm-hmm.
What was I going to say? A lot of the things that like liberals are kind of saying will happen under Trump are already happening to certain extents. Like Roe v.
Right.
Wade will be taken away from you. And it's like, well, the Democrats failed to codify that. And like,
Right.
I understand that like a lot of the judges who were put into power happened under Trump's presidency, but nevertheless, like the Democrats could have made more of an actual like stand.
Yeah.
Like it'll be hard to protest. Like as a college professor, it's already pretty hard to protest like
Right.
under a supposedly like liberal administration.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like condensation, I think, in the way that liberals kind of talk, especially to Muslims and Arabs in this moment, that it's really kind of difficult to swallow.
Condescending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also one thing I appreciate about your perspective, though I'm not sure if I don't think it's my own, is that there's a tendency to kind of paint people who are voting for Stein right now as kind of like nihilists, like sort of like, well, it's a vote for Trump, or like, it's not
you just want to watch the whole system burn.
Right, it's not
like,
going to make a
you don't
difference.
actually care about anything.
But arguably, it is kind of hopeful to try to throw your hat in the ring for what could be a better system. Like, I think that in some ways could be kind of read as like more of like,
you're trying to build something
Right.
against all odds.
Exactly.
Right? It's like when these motherfuckers watch Harry Potter
I mean, this is like your own hang up. I've heard you talk about this before.
or Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like if they took their arguments and applied it to those stories,
Right.
they'd be like,
Got to
those
compromise with the
rebel
empire.
guys, those
Yeah.
rebel guys, like the odds are just so small. Like why
Yeah.
would you do that?
Right.
You should just
and it
vote
will
for
take time. Like Stein's not going to win, but if she gets 5%, then like the Green Party will get like certain accommodations. Like they'll be
Yeah.
automatically on ballots in a way that they haven't been before, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
If we were not in a swing state, I wouldn't hesitate voting for Stein. I will say I also don't love. I won't get into details, but I don't love the Stein campaign for a couple of reasons. But I still appreciate the work that they're doing.
Yeah, we can save that for another episode. But I feel opposite. I'm like, I love the fact that I'm in a swing state and get to vote for Stein. Like
I know you do.
I'm just like, it makes me more excited because I know how much more it's worth, and like I don't give a fuck about people trying to tell me like, oh, well, you're actually voting for Trump. I'm like,
You're not.
you don't actually understand how
for
a
sure.
fucking vote works. Like it's such a tired and frankly like quite an embarrassing argument to be making. But yeah, I'm happy to register my vote in Pennsylvania for Jill Stein.
I probably will hold my nose and vote for Harris most likely, and then try and vote for more radical candidates down the ballot.
Yeah, I told you I just found out that my parents in North Carolina are going to be voting for Jill Stein.
Because the Green Party got out and talked to
The
like
Green
Arabs
Party-
in rural areas. Good for them.
They
I'm sure
had-
that no fucking Democrats did that.
They had a little town hall for
In
and my-
Thomasville, North Carolina, that's crazy.
I mean, I don't know if it was
Maybe
in Thomasville.
Greensboro.
It might have been. Yeah, it might have been in Greensboro. Probably in Greensboro, just because that's probably where
it's a
the
big Sudani population there too. Yeah.
a lot of Muslims there, and so seems like my dad went and saw Stein, and when I was talking to him, it seemed like that was what convinced them.
Oh,
like,
he actually saw Jill Stein herself? That's cool.
Yeah, I think so. And so I think the fact that they actually did that outreach, he was like, oh, yeah. And when he told me why he's voting for her, not only was it that, but apparently they just did a good job explaining that there is a there's a duopoly, right? And although we may not win
long term,
this is a moment where you can build something, a third party option, because more and more people are seeing that this two-party duopoly is actually there. There's no daylight between them. And that's essentially like how my dad put it to me.
Good
and I was
on
like,
them.
And again, this is a guy who
Are you going to blow up his business like this?
I was a Trump voter in 2020. And before that, in 2016, wanted to vote for Bernie, but then
did he vote?
He voted for, I think they voted for Clinton.
Yeah. So they're really that key North Carolina swinging demographic.
They were people who were just like, oh.
Your mom didn't vote for Trump, though. Your mom
No.
for Biden.
Yes.
And we were impressed because she filed an absentee ballot by herself and stuff, which I wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. It is kind of like a really interesting case study, just looking at, they obviously have working class interests, right, and working poor interests, so they wanted to vote for Bernie, right? Despite what people tell you about Arabs and whatever, they're like anti-Semitic. They never voted. Blah blah blah.
Jill Stein's also Jewish, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, we'll vote for Bernie.
Yeah,
like we want to vote for Bernie, and
right.
then the DNC made it so that you couldn't vote for Bernie, right? Like they took pretty much the nomination away from him. But
I wouldn't go that far, but okay, continue.
I would say that they actually
yeah.
did things to make sure they aligned all their structures so that he wouldn't get the nomination. Right.
Wait, can I give a quick sidebar?
Yeah.
It's been interesting because with the Washington Post refused to endorse someone for president, it seems like because they were afraid of retribution if Trump is elected. And people have been pulling up his Bernie quote of him talking about the Washington Post being kind of controlled by special interests. At the time, people were like, "That's ridiculous," and now it's like, "Oh, clearly that's true."
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and then they voted for Clinton. They got 4 years of Trump instead, and they were like, "Oh, this whatever." Like they were just disenchanted with how the Democratic Party handled those 4 years under
right.
Trump, and so then they split, and then now
they're both voting
just
for Stein.
Oh, we'll
Your
vote
mom
for Stein.
Too?
We actually see another person who's willing to represent
our interests,
anti-war, working poor interests, and yeah, they're voting based on that. They're actually thinking about their vote. They're not just I totally zombies who don't have any sort of critical reasoning
Don't respect
skills.
your dad voting for Trump that one time, but I will let that go.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's really cool that the Green Party reached out and that they took the time to actually chat with people and that your parents really thought it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proud of them.
What any predictions? I have some predictions. This is what I think is going to happen. I'm going to say it on record and we'll see. I think that she's going to lose Michigan. Mm-hmm. Harris will lose Michigan for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she will win the popular vote, but lose the Electoral College, and we will have Trump. That's my prediction. And I think it will be worse than last time, significantly worse, but I don't think it will be as bad as the worst predictions in terms of our quality of life.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think that there'll be less free press. I think that I don't think anything will change in the foreign policy. I think they'll just be the same, but I think life in the U.S. will be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
What do you think? So I'm going wins popular vote, but not the Electoral College. We need to fucking abolish the Electoral College, but that's another story.
Yeah. I think Harris will come back to Western Pennsylvania. She's going to eat the biggest, sloppiest, most disgusting Primanti's sandwich on live stream.
Wow.
People are going to see the sheer level of physical torture she's willing to put herself through for the American people. And she'll win 100% of the popular vote.
Okay, what's your actual prediction?
I think Trump's going to win.
Yeah, do you think it'll be similar to me, popular vote versus Electoral College, or do you think he'll win them both?
I don't know. I think it'll be pretty close on the popular vote, but then he'll win the electoral college.
I'm totally stealing my predictions from a political scientist I had dinner with, and I was like, that sounds right. I agree with you.
Okay, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I think the popular vote is going to be like, I can't say, it's going to be like 50-50-ish, and then he'll win the electoral college. I think what will happen after that is that the Democratic Party is going to immediately just go on a campaign to be like, we lost because of Jill Stein.
I think they're also going to probably scapegoat Arabs and Muslims.
They're going to scapegoat Arabs and Muslims and be like, these people are not your allies.
Not voting in their own interests, blah, blah, blah.
And they're not going to do any more outreach. I think on the big issues like that they're trying to run on with abortion, they're not going to do anything about it.
Well, they won't have the power to be fair, at that point.
I'm curious about what power they're going to have anyway if they get elected, right? Because the whole decision is that it's going to be left to the states, and already how many, like 30-something states have passed like pro-abortion, like they codified abortion, right? So it's like...
but a lot of states have gone in the other direction too, and there's been an uptick in like deaths, like in Texas, of like women who like aren't receiving medical care. So it's become state by state now.
It is state by state. I'd have to look up. I think more states have passed pro-abortion, like have protected abortion, than have not. The number of overall abortions has gone up since 2020.
Because people have access to pills now.
Right.
Yes, as opposed to.
But
the quality of care in terms of like in states where like including like Texas, for example, and Florida has demonstrably gone down. Like there have been multiple instances of doctors who are afraid to get sued, who don't do operations, who don't. Yeah.
So there's this like valence of fear that's being created in some states where like what they're really banking on is that their actual legislation, like their rules, keep getting struck down in courts, but they keep putting forth these crazy laws that make it so that doctors don't really know what would happen.
Right.
And so there's like this valence of fear in a lot of places. And then the other thing that's gone down in terms of abortion care, and this has been happening, I think, since the like 70s or 80s, is the number of facilities that provide that sort of care.
So people have to go like a very long way to get it. Yeah.
It's gone down because, again, this happened in North Carolina. They'll pass some like crazy rules about like, oh, if you provide abortions, you must have like hallways that are like 15 feet wide or
just
something
like stupid shit.
Like
yeah.
The facility has to meet certain parameters that like these facilities don't often have and don't actually have to do with like how well you can provide the care or whatever. So, yeah, they have like a lot of different ways, and they are actually, so there was one state in particular, was it Arkansas or something, like where now that what the Republicans are doing is like they're like, okay, we got rid of Roe v. Wade, we want it to go back to the states. Yes. And then they saw that all these states are actually like abortion's actually a pretty popular issue.
Like Ohio passed a referendum that was
and
pro.
So they're trying to fight it so that they're like, okay, we didn't mean the states could do that.
right,
like,
right.
You know? So who knows? But I think it's happening at like the state and like district level. I do wonder, like, even if Harris won, what would she be able to do to like stop all
I think
that
literally
the
the only thing that would happen is that there might be less like judges appointed who are pro-abortion. That's like, that is the scary thing, I think, is the kind of like judicial level.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Democrats haven't done much. I think it's like the summary of this whole thing.
But like, I mean, maybe it's not a popular thing to campaign on, but you know, if she really wanted to be like, we're gonna actually protect abortion, it's like we're gonna change the Supreme Court.
100%,
right? Like
I agree with you.
She's like, we're gonna
yeah.
The way to do this is to reform the Supreme Court if that's like the blocking thing.
Oh,
but they're happy to hide behind it because like, they don't have to do
this
anything.
Reminds me of like the other thing that's driving me crazy about her campaign is that she's fucking campaigning with the Cheneys is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
That especially in Michigan, like she's campaigning with people who perpetuated the Iraq War.
Yeah.
Like she just could not be any more clear that she does not give a shit about her constituents who are Arab. Like And she's also completely going for the center. And that's the thing that's also kind of creepy and weird is that if the Democrats do win, it will have been from a campaign that pandered to Republicans who can't stomach Trump, you know? And so it's not really that she went for the left of her base or even the slightly more progressive part of her base.
Yeah.
I watched a clip with her recently where she was asked straight up about like trans care. And she wouldn't commit. It was like, it's up to like the individual states, like on everything. She's been very like middle of the road.
Yeah.
Did you see also there was a crazy clip of her doing a CNN, I think it was CNN town hall where she was asked about the wall and she was like making fun of Trump. Did you see this?
No.
She was making fun of Trump and like how he like said that he would build the wall and he like didn't really build it.
Yeah.
And then like he took a photo and it was part of a section that Obama had built.
Yeah.
And then she gets asked straight up, but are you in support of the wall?
Yeah.
And she like can't answer. She's like,
Right.
but Trump didn't build it. He's like, I see it, but how about you? Like, how about your position?
Yeah.
And she's like, immigration reform or is important. Like
Yeah.
no actual policy, like no actual stance. It's
Yeah.
all just Trump is bad. Vote for me because I'm slightly less worse.
Well, because she's trying to stay within. She's trying to like not actually have an opinion on these like really popular issues because immigration is the other one.
Right.
But like a lot of people are like, they actually want the wall or like some semblance of secure borders, right?
Right.
Which is not super popular among the Democratic base, but she's just like, well, I can't say that we should build the wall, although most people kind of want to build the wall, but like it would make me look bad among my like base or whatever. So yeah, I love how she's like, oh yeah, he didn't actually build the wall. We did. We've been building it the last 4 years. Like, okay, all right.
I've heard some good policies about like family leave and first time home ownership. There's like one or two things, but largely there just aren't that many policies like, to even take a stance on.
Embarrassing. So, okay. All right. One thing on the there was another clip of her when she was being asked about Gaza and she like shifted from that to being like, well, you know, groceries are expensive. You're just like, what?
Yeah. She basically made it sound like, like people care about genocide, but they also care about groceries, which like it's just such a
I'll slide some clips in
devilish thing to say.
Stupid.
What do you say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and have talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries.
And then there's also like, you can't literally control grocery prices either. Like that's like a false promise. Like I know she's got some ideas, but like it's not like you're not going to immediately fix inflation as soon as you're in office. Like even that part of it is not real, you know?
Well, I was actually listening to something about this the other day, right? Like the groceries thing is where it's most felt, and they'll never say this, is among working poor. Like poor people,
of course,
for them, groceries have actually gotten expensive. But like for most other working people, right? Salaries and like wages have like kind of kept up with the increase in groceries. So like I suppose on like a nominal level, like there's not that much of a hit to the household economy, right?
That makes sense. But if you're in kind of like an income bracket that is not rising in terms of salary.
Right. So if you're poor, this is awful. And things are more expensive than ever and your wages have not kept up. But you won't hear her say that, right? She's talking about these rules around price gouging, but their policies around price gouging are, you know, the caveats are like, oh, well, when there's a disaster, you know, we want to make sure like that people don't like price gouge. And you're just like, okay, but people are, when they hear that, they think about when they go to the grocery store and there isn't a hurricane that just hit their town, right?
I was gonna say we're not like in that income bracket, but I have felt like grocery prices have gone up. So I don't know, maybe just anecdotal, but
I mean, yeah, but like have gone up, I guess, with inflation
Yeah.
and like so have
Yeah.
wages and
That's
like
true,
where
that's
we are.
true.
Like, the number, it's a higher number.
Right.
But it's, you know, probably if you had gotten a professorship like 7 years ago, you'd probably be making like $64,000.
You're right. Yeah.
So yeah, what was the other thing I was gonna
Any last
say?
commentary on the election? It is October 27th today, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out soon.
Yeah. Our next one will be a reaction to the election.
Do you have any more items?
No. Oh, yeah. Did you have an item?
I sure did.
Oh, yeah. Share us your item.
Actually, this is somewhat related. Speaking of people who should quit their jobs, Thomas Friedman
Yes.
published an article or an op-ed in the New York Times the other day titled Arab and Jewish voters both need Kamala Harris. And this is, when I say just did not need to be written, like something that a fourth grade student in like an ESL class could have written. It's like fucking 500, 300 words max. And this man is just cashing like probably like $200,000 checks from the New York Times.
Well, he's been writing op-eds for years. There was
To give-
actually a really good AI generator a while back that would like create a Thomas Friedman op-ed for you. It's pretty predictable, his style and takes.
Yeah.
But there's one part that's particularly offensive. I don't know if you're about to read that. But
Oh, I'm going
Yeah.
to. I'm going to read a bit from it. I mean, it's a pretty short article, but he starts off by saying, a day barely goes by without a story about how many Arab and Muslim Americans or Jewish Americans plan to cast their votes in this presidential election based on their distress over the Gaza war or its spillover onto American college campuses. If you are in that category, there is only one candidate to vote for. Kamala Harris. They let him end his kind of clauses with a preposition. I didn't think they would let instead of for whom to vote.
Well,
Anyway.
sounds too formal.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, he says, I totally understand the distress coursing through these two communities. Really, Thomas? Like you. So he's assuring us that he absolutely
He's a
totally
sympathetic guy.
understands. He's really considering all the issues.
Yeah.
God, this is like kind of the pull quote that gets really embarrassing. Arab and Muslim Americans with friends and family in Gaza or Lebanon or the West Bank worry every day about loved ones being killed or wounded with US-made weapons that were transferred to Israel. Jewish Americans have to worry every day about their kids being exposed to left-wing anti-Zionism on US college campuses.
Literally, I feel like there's not something that better encapsulates how little Americans care about Arabs to be like, people are having their whole families exterminated.
Yeah.
And then some college kids are uncomfortable.
And some
like, how the fuck dare you?
Not only uncomfortable, but like they're uncomfortable that people are mad that their families are being they're mad at the ideology that is causing their families and loved ones to be exterminated.
Honestly, a lot of discourse around campus sounds like this now, and it's just like very hard to like keep a cool temper, which obviously I have to.
I saw a kid whose like legs were blown off today.
Right.
I would say that made me uncomfortable.
I've interacted with students who have like lost family members. You know, we have knew of people who were in Beirut when the attack happened. Like we have friends who have family in Iran. Like it's not abstract, you know?
No.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking insane that someone like this gets paid a ton of money.
Thankfully, that quote really made the rounds. People were like, "This is crazy."
Why did they let him write? Why did they like?
He's been writing for years. He's just like he is like an op-ed machine.
But one has to think about like, what are the opinions? Like just because you've been doing it and you haven't, the fact that you've been doing it for like 30 fucking years and haven't produced a single worthwhile opinion is that like
I
that's like
think
if
that,
I had a job interview and I was like, yeah, I've been doing this, I've been in this job for 10 years, and they're like, okay, but like what skills do you have? And I'm like, oh well, I don't have
right,
any.
right.
Like I'm one of the dumbest people you've ever met in your life. And they're like, okay, but why should we hire you? I'm like, well, because I've been the dumbest guy ever for 10 years. Like,
He writes, one thing I can say that like as someone who has written 1 or 2 op-eds and would like to write more, he does a good job really kind of dumbing things down and writing with like a very clear.
He's not dumbing it down. He's just dumb. Like he's like, this is the level. This is my level of intellectual rigor.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, obviously, but I feel like I guess the one thing I can say for him is that he writes well for his audience. So if we can learn from that, but leave everything else.
I mean, is his audience also like morons? Like, is it dumb people? Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand.
I read the Times.
But do you read Thomas Friedman and you're like, oh wow, like.
No, not unless I
Okay.
see that one of his stupid op-eds have gone viral. But I think, yeah, no, you're right. It's ridiculous. Also, like, I feel like I'm sure that Jewish Americans would also be offended by this. It's just also very like annoying to be like, I get you guys. Let me tell you what to do. It's like no one asked you, and like you're not speaking to our actual concerns.
I mean, yeah, Jewish Americans, but like Zionists are probably like, yeah, actually, the fact that we have to hear people saying that Israel is killing children is actually pretty hard on us.
Yeah.
The fact that like people are saying that the IDF is just like the leading cause of infant mortality in the world is it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And it is equivalent to having your 3-month-old killed by a bomb. Like, yeah, in their minds, like they are just like sick enough to draw an equivalence between those two things. Thomas Friedman does offer us some solutions, though. Would you like to hear them?
I would.
I mean, he tells us like what we should do if we want peace in the Middle East. He says, second, if you want peace in the Middle East or peace on college campuses when it comes to Middle East issues, it is only going to come about via a president committed to exactly what Harris advocated in her CNN town hall on Wednesday night. Bring the hostages home, bring relief to the Palestinian people, and work toward a 2-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians in equal measure have security.
The way that like
Wow.
Americans,
I'd never thought of that.
the way that Americans talk about like the potential for peace in Palestine is so similar to like, and I usually hate these kind of metaphors, but I really do think this is true. It's so similar to like kind of an abusive dynamic where like we are the ones who are inflicting the harm. Like we are providing the actual ammunition that is killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're also like, come on guys, like get it together.
Yeah.
Like there is no ceasefire because of us. Like that's not possible,
Yeah.
and ceasefire has become virtually meaningless at this point by the ways Democrats have used the term.
Yeah.
Until there's an arms embargo, there is no way forward. Yeah.
Yeah, but he said that if you... I just love this like circular reasoning where he's just like, well, whatever Harris says and believes in, that's the thing that's going to get us peace in the Middle East. And if you want peace in the Middle East, you have to vote for Harris because everything that she says is the thing that... So, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. The really concerning thing here is that people like Friedman, so like Democrats, have started to use this like really fascistic language and kind of doing like the work of like something like a Trump administration, right? So in this last paragraph, he says, a U.S. administration committed to producing 2 states for 2 peoples is the best way to diffuse the crisis in the Middle East and sap the energy of left-wing anti-Zionism on campuses. And I feel like maybe to most people that reads as like, oh, it's just like a throwaway line or it's like a given, but that's really the thing that concerns me is that the fact that we're saying the most extreme part of this is the left-wing anti-Zionism, like it's already become a given, like in the, like your typical Democratic mind that is an issue, right? Anyone who is progressive or like an out and out, like they're like saying like I'm anti-Zionist and I define Zionists as
Support for the Israeli state.
a nationalistic
Right.
ethno-state project,
Right.
right? That is in support of a apartheid state
Yeah.
and an extermination campaign. That's what I'm against. And it's almost like it is like the new McCarthyism, where it's just like, oh, these people are a problem. And even in the minds of someone like Thomas Friedman, who is just like a little liberal darling, I don't know what else to call it other than like they are just doing the McCarthyism. And the way this language works is that now you've put a target on the backs of anti-Zionist Jews, Arabs, and Muslims. And from that, we get like a whole other slew of, oh, well, we've already said these people are like, equivalent to domestic terrorists. So we probably need to surveil them more. We need to cut down on their free speech, make sure that they don't have any platforms. And shit like that only begets like fascistic policy and gets cultural support for
Are you fetishizing? What's fascistic?
fascist.
Oh, fascist. Oh, fascist. I'm so dumb. I was like, fetishizing? How are they fetishizing?
They're gonna fuck us. they're gonna fuck us and have their way with us. And
so embarrassing. No, I totally agree. I think I'm bored of saying this, but like, it's not, we know anti-Semitism is real. It's just not the same thing as anti-Zionism. And like, I should write a piece on this, but it's just so hard to do in a way that like, because I don't think it's the main issue. Like I think Gaza is, but like anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are so linked historically. And it just like is insane to me that like support for a nation state is like that, being able to kind of define people's like religious proclivities. I've heard from so many like Jews who are so like hurt and frustrated by this. And like, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Like, just like my spirituality is not defined by my relationship to this nation state, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say earlier on the Harris policy is probably not worth saying anymore because we're too far from it. But the policy she has come out with, because I think she's realizing that she's losing like black male voters. Did we talk about this already?
The crypto thing, or
yeah. How hilarious is that? That's like so.
I'm also
insane.
like, I'm just surprised. In my head, I thought that most crypto people were like white guys who were like, I don't know. That's what I think of as like a white bro. I don't know anything about crypto though.
Yeah.
I know it's basically dead at this point, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. I need to actually write something about this.
About crypto?
No, tangentially about crypto, but I would like to maybe talk about it on a future episode. It's just like the economy and kind of the culture at large, it kind of just feels like it doesn't really have anything to offer us anymore. And there's just like this like falling apart of like the fabric of American society. Like people are just like becoming more and more desperate, more and more individualistic, blah, 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 blah. These are all cliches. Like we've all heard them before, but like, it just seems like we are getting to a point where there isn't really a way to make it. And we're relying more and more on people's vices to give them hope that they can make money through them. So like things like gambling and crypto
Is this
are
your like
just they're becoming more ubiquitous. I don't know.
I know. I agree with you. I'm just laughing because it sounds like such a Salafi take, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. I mean, like a broken clock twice right a day, right?
I think some vices are helpful.
I'm not saying vice is bad or like you shouldn't be able to like indulge or anything like that. I'm saying when it is
a coping mechanism to get through the day. Yeah.
When it is the only thing that you have, and when it is pushed by these like massive institutions, and like the only institution that you have that is supposed to be responsive to your own needs is absolutely doing nothing except like feeding you to the fucking wolves so that they can like pick you apart and like take every little part of you. That's bad, right? And the betting markets and like everything has just gotten to the point where you can just bet on like every little thing.
It is disturbing. It also shows like an ultimate kind of commodification that like anything can be put
Everything's
in those terms.
commodified.
Yeah.
And even schools, like we talked about this before, right? Like universities where they're being
the esports.
No, not just the esports, but like they are making deals with like giant online gambling platforms so that these students can now bet on like their team sports. They can easily like I don't know, convert their like whatever university dollars into like gambling, whatever the fuck. It's just, it portends something horrible. But I'll collect my thoughts and maybe we can talk about it some other time.
No, I think it's a really interesting topic.
Anyway,
It's kind of, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I was gonna say at the same time, like I feel like there is like potential for like exploration through like some substances, like psychedelics and stuff. So it's an interesting kind of push and pull what to do about that in like a capitalist hellscape. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Stay tuned for Ahmed Amr's Salafi anti-gambling take.
Yeah. Okay. So now that I'm gonna be unemployed, we're gonna do this thing.
We've been doing this thing.
We're gonna get 5,000 downloads a day.
All right, Mr. Unemployed, make it happen. I'm excited. I'm along for the ride.
You can probably hear we've invested in some new equipment, so hopefully the sound quality is better. Hopefully we can mitigate the fact that Yasmine is still just like waving her mic around.
So rude.
And yeah, I don't know. We gotta just do more social media stuff, and just look forward to some fresh, hot, new content. Is all I have to say.
Yes, this man's got time now, so
I've got
you'll see
time.
You'll see the benefit of it, inshallah.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.